Okay, talking about effective practice. This is one of my biggest learnings because I used to love practicing and I would practice so much, but what I was doing in my practice sessions was not helping me at all at tournaments. I wasn't practicing with the same mentality, the same intensity. I wasn't practicing. I'd have like music on. I might even have my shoes off when I was practicing. I'd go to a tournament and everything's different. And so I might as well have been playing tiddlywinks when I was at home for the amount of actual transfer to actual competition. So I learned over the long run how to practice effectively. So you want to, and you've probably heard it before, practice like you play, kind of thing. So like, and it's true. But you want to build into your practice what I needed to do in order to learn how to handle pressure. Because I discovered that through taking notes and through evaluation of my tournaments that I'd go to, that I would still have trouble with pressure underneath big points or later in tournaments, like in the finals or the semifinals, loser bracket finals, winner bracket finals, whatever it was. I would find myself not executing to my level. Something changed. So that was pressure. So I wanted to learn how to handle pressure. So in order to learn how to handle something, in order to learn something, you need to practice it. So there's three different types of practice. To me, I've called them exploratory practice. There's the learning practice, the repetition, and then there's the mastery. So the exploratory one is where you're just like, you're trying to like, and this is what I really enjoy doing, where you're like, oh, I have a nice lane. Can I find a good down option off that lane? Just to explore, just to play with that lane, play with the motion of it, play with the feel of it, play with the toss, and then can I find a good option off of that? And then once I have that option, can I find something that be like, okay, I'll fake the lane and then do the other, or I'll fake the option but still do my lane. Kind of just more exploratory, get the feel of something, playing around. It's really not worrying about did I execute it, it's more just, it's exploratory. Maybe you don't have a good way to hit middles, maybe you want to change different hand techniques, different ways to hold the rod. That's exploratory practice, and I often did that at the start of my practice sessions. Allow me to just warm, and allows me to warm up as well. So I did this exploratory, played with different passing options, played with different shooting options, just playing around with things, seeing if I could build off my existing game, because I always found it very good if I could find a pass or an option that was very comfortable for me, very natural. I would think, well, that's something I should build off of. If that's natural, if I can naturally do that one, like for example, my stick lane was something I could just naturally do for some reason. So what could I build off of that? Was more that exploratory thinking. So that's exploratory practice. And then there's the learning. Say you picked an option now, and now you want to learn what that option really feels like, so you can really just get that repetition. So that's when you might say, for example, you're working on your pull side of a rollover or a pull shot long. So that's when you do something in repetition, where you're like, get it, set it up, do it. Get it, set it up, do it. Get it, set it up, do it. And you want it to be very, very repetitive with the same timing in this type of practice. Because you want to allow your body to learn what this feels like, and your body will learn what it feels like, how to do it through repetition, doing it the same way again and again and again. So your body starts to realize what that feels like. You'll start to know what that feels like. To me, it is a feeling thing. That's where the memory of it comes from, for lack of a better term. But that's you need repetition when you're learning a new skill. So that's that kind of practice. But the practice I'm going to talk about mostly about, with the mental game, is the mastery style of practice. So here's where you want to learn how to execute in response to external stimuli. So execute not just when you want to, and this is one of the biggest, I think, differences between like semi-pros, rookies maybe. They all have great skills, but they don't necessarily do the skills when the option is open. They do it when they want. They're just like, they got the ball, as I'm going to tack it around, I'm going lane, is what they might do. As opposed to a pro master's like, I'm going lane, but I'm going to wait for it. Is he on it? Is he on it? It's open, go. Like, that's a totally different type of mental preparation in order to do your option in response to something else. You can't just do it when you want, because that's much simpler to do it that lane when you want, because you're not worrying about anything else as to when is it open or not. You're not trying to read the defense. But that's something that you do want to strive to attempt to be able to do, is really have that mastery level of your options, to be able to do them when it's open and wait for it when it's open, and then be able to execute when that occurrence does happen. So that's, being able to respond to external stimuli, and that response is like the man moved off the hole, or the hole was open for more than a second, or whatever you saw. So that's what you need to do, and I'll talk about how to do that within practice. And also you need to practice varying your timing. You can't do that same repetition style practice. You need to be able to execute it varying your timing. So everything we all talk about, I learned his timing. He always passes on the third toss. He shoots after 5 seconds all the time. There's timing. We're all very good as foosball players at reading each other's timing or getting a feel for that timing. We might not realize it, but we have those instincts, because that's what we've all played this game for years. So we've all gotten very, very good at that. And some more than others are more conscious about it. Masters are very good at finding people's timing and learning about it, and knowing what their own timing is, and knowing when to vary it when they've gotten maybe into a habit of timing, or shooting underneath the same time, or passing underneath the same time. So that's practicing, building into your practice of varying timing, so you're not just executing every 3 seconds. You might execute after 4 seconds, you might execute after 10 seconds, you might execute after 6 seconds, like varying that timing. So again, it's kind of similar to the responding to external stimuli, but it has other factors of just making sure you're varying your timing, so you're not predictable. And then finally is practicing under pressure. So practicing with pressure, building into your practice routine some kind of pressure, so that it matters if you drop a pass, it matters if you miss a shot somehow. So I'll go into now a bit of a demonstration, or I'll explain what I'm going to do first, and then I'll demonstrate the practice technique that I used when I was in my mastery phase. And this is for the last, 10 years of my playing career. I would consider I was in the mastery phase, because I was always just preparing for tournaments, making sure my game was sharp enough to handle the pressures, that I can do things consistently and be able to handle the pressure, be able to respond when the hole was open, and be able to vary my timing, or at least have an understanding of when I might fall into the same timing, to know what that looks like, to know to stop doing it. So essentially what I learned to do in practice is every night before bed, when I was practicing, I practiced late at night, just what I did. Every night before bed, I would practice, and I would not allow myself to go to bed before I could do 10 of every one of my options in a row without fail. And if I did fail, I'd have to start over from 1 again. So for example, say I'm in my practice session, and I know in my 5-bar I have 2 walls, and I have a middle lane, and I have a high lane. Those are 4 options. So I have a tic-tac wall, and I have a straight wall, and I have a lane pass, and then I have a 2 to 2, for example. I think I had one more option, but I'll just use those as an example. So for my 5-bar, if I was working on my 5-bar that day, I would say I'm going lane. I would have to hit 10 lanes in a row without fail, fully catched. No, I wouldn't cheat myself. I wouldn't say, I dropped it, but blah, blah, blah. No, if you dropped it, you're starting over. So I'd hit 1, I'd hit 2, I'd hit 3. If I dropped that one, now I'm starting over back at 1 again. 1, and hit 2, and hit 3, and hit 4, and then so on and so on until I got to 10. Once I got to 10 in a row of a given option, I could move on to the next option. So then say if I did 10 lanes, and then I'd go to walls, 1, 2, 3, and then within that, I would make sure I was varying the timing of when I was executing those things. It wasn't just like I said there, like that was very repetitious with the same timing. I'd make sure and I'll show it how I vary the timing. So I'd make sure I'd actually vary the timing within that 10 in a row. So not any one of them was on the same timing. So that's just another thing I added. And then finally, by doing that, forcing that must do 10 in a row. So the 8th, 9th, 10 one, those ones are game-like. Those ones are the ones where I needed to pull out my how to handle pressure techniques, where I needed to make sure I was focused, just what I was going to do, and only I'm going to hit that lane, or whatever the thought was, whatever my little cue was to know how to get back into that zone, or to mute that choker, but allow myself to focus. And I'll get into that more in the how to play, because that's where all those techniques come in, about focus and how to bring yourself into focus, or at least focus your mind. So that those last points, those 8th, 9th, 10 points, are the ones that actually really, they're the ones that you're practicing the pressure. The rest is good repetition and good varying of timing. But those 8th, 9th, 10 options are the ones where you're now, if I drop this, I have to start over, which sucked. So, but I'm going to focus. I'm just going to get it done and do it well. So those are some of the techniques that I use, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm not going to do it up to 10 because I'm no longer that skilled anymore. I'll do it up to 5. Plus, I'm sure you don't want to watch me do 10 of each of my options, but I'll show you what a little practice session would have looked like me probably 4 or 5 years ago.